Hello and welcome to Focus on the Arts. I'm Paul Kreider, Dean of the College of Creative Arts at West Virginia University. And our show talks about artists and things that are happening in West Virginia and at WVU. And today my guest is James Valenti, operatic tenor and WVU alumnus. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to just quickly go through a couple of items in your bio so that our audience knows how distinguished you are at such a young age. So at age 25, Valenti made his professional debut at the opera in Roma, or Rome, Italy, where he played Rodolfo in La Bohème. He has also appeared at La Scala in Milan, Metropolitan Opera, Royal Opera House in London, the Opera in Paris, Sydney, the Bayerische Staatsoper in Munich, and the Deutsche Oper in Berlin, and just recently the Lyric Opera of Chicago. So we're so happy that you're back in Morgantown and here to visit with us.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I haven't been here in at least over a decade, and it's exciting to see all the changes happening, and I'm so excited to be here as a guest like this.
Well, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about, you graduated in 2000, and you started your operatic career immediately.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
But let's talk about your time at WVU. So what was it like in Morgantown and in the College of Creative Arts in the late 90s?
Well, yeah, I came here in 95, and I grew up in New Jersey, so it was my first time sort of far from home and kind of on my own, and I lived over at Bennett Tower over on the Evansdale campus, and I just remember at the time, I mean, this was I think the mountain layer had just been built just before that, and Evansdale was still not so much there. I think there's a big student center there now too, or something.
Well, they're building one soon, right?
Yeah, but there's a athletic center or something over
Correct.
there. Yeah, that was
Rec center, right?
the rec center. Yes,
Right.
that wasn't there when that time, and I just remember walking from Bennett Tower to the College of Creative Arts, and I just spent a lot of time there at the CAC, College of Creative Arts.
Well, as a music
Creative
major,
Arts
you're at the
Center.
CAC.
Yeah, I
12
was
hours a
there.
day.
I was there. I had all my music history courses and music theory and ear training and choir, and I just dove right in.
Right.
Piano proficiency. I just kind of did everything when I was there,
Right.
and I actually came in as education and performance. I was sort of dual for a while, and trying to figure out if I wanted to become a choir director like my high school choir director, or and then I always I loved singing, but I didn't really know that much about opera, and it was really at my time at WVU that the opera bug really bit me, and I really became like addicted to opera. I just started listening to all kinds of recordings, and I had a great teacher here at WVU, Augusto Payalunga, who is now since retired, but he was my first inspiration. He himself had a very good operatic career, mostly in Europe, and he recognized from an early age my talent and my ability, and a good story, I think it was like the second or third voice lesson we had. It was like my second or third week of college.
As a freshman?
As a freshman,
Okay.
yeah. And we were doing some vocalese and stuff, and he just heard something. He heard some potential. And he said, give me the phone number, I'm gonna call your parents. I'm like, what? So he calls my parents in New Jersey, and he leaves his voicemail, and he says, my name is Augusto Payalunga, I'm teaching your son, I'm in West Virginia University, and I just want to tell you that he's an amazing talent, and he could become a great opera singer. And at the time, I was, I was singing Billy Joel songs and the show choir and stuff. I didn't really know that much about opera. I knew a little bit, but I didn't really know. But he heard something, and he encouraged me, and basically, over those years, I just started listening more and more to opera, and I would travel to Pittsburgh with WVU, would take these trips up to the Pittsburgh Opera, to the Bentham Center, and I heard my first opera there when I was about 18, and in Pittsburgh. And so over the years at WVU, I just sort of found my voice. And
So what was that moment? I mean, there was something that clicked all of a sudden that made you realize this is what I really want to do.
Yeah, my senior year, I was cast as the lead in Candide with the opera company, or with the opera theater at WVU, and we performed in the concert theater. I don't know what it's called anymore, but the concert theater. It was a big venue. I was the title character, and it was my first time really taking on that kind of a role with a full orchestra, and I just loved being on stage. I loved the feeling of just pouring my voice out for the audience and feeling that, you know, live theater is such a tangible, visceral thing, and I love the feeling the audience would get, the excitement, and I just wanted to, something about being on stage just really, you know, it felt like this is my purpose. This is my, I have this talent, I have these abilities, and this is where I belong. And I was about 22 years old at the time. And it was right around then that I said, this is what I want to do. And up until then, I sang opera scenes, I was in a bunch of the choirs, and I even started, my friends of mine, we started a vocal jazz group it was called Same Difference, which I think you told me was still in existence up until recently. Yeah. So I really had a really good variety of musical experiences while I was here. Choir, jazz, musical theater, and opera, just something about that art form, you know, the purity of it and the voice and natural acoustic. The challenge, you know, learning to control the voice, learning the technique, learning how to sing efficiently in that way. It just really appealed to me. And I have, you know, this teacher and other people at WVU, a lot of the music teachers that really encouraged me to try many different things and to, you know, recognize my abilities.
So of all the things that you did as a student, you know, and having gone through it myself, I mean, you've got piano and all the courses and the lessons and the choirs,
right,
and this and that. What would you say, I mean, it all has an impact on your training.
Right.
But what was probably the single most facet that really, that you feel you can really point to as made you who you are today when you're on the stage?
Well, again, I have to say that the versatility that I had, because I had the opportunity to try out all these different, you know, genres, and figure out which one really spoke and resonated the most with me. But you know, I remember fondly my music history courses and sitting and listening to and learning about the evolution of you know, the camerata and the evolution of opera up until today, and all the different types of opera and music history in general, you know, and just I was like a sponge when I was here. You know, I just kind of wanted to learn as much as I could, and I would spend hours in. It probably doesn't exist anymore. It was called the listening lab, and this is before YouTube and before, you know, internet was before smartphones, before everybody had internet connection. So we literally have to go to this room called listening lab and put on headphones and listen to CDs, and you know, I would just spend hours in there listening to all kinds of singers and all kinds of music, and you know, Carmina Burana and all these things, just to kind of, you know, learn about it. And I just was like a sponge. And I think probably one of my most fond memories, which I just thought of this just now, I used to come to the CAC after hours. I would come even on like a weekday or Friday or Saturday night. I would be home in my dorm room and I'd be listening to something and I'd be like, God, I feel like singing. And you can't obviously open up and sing when you're in your dorm room. You know, my roommates, my neighbors would bang on the wall, shut up, you know. So I would go to the CAC late at night, and I would go into the orchestra rehearsal rooms, these big rooms, and I would just sit there at the piano and I would just start to sing these tenor arias. And this is before I knew about all the different types of voices. I just sang whatever I wanted, from Il mio tesoro to the aria from Forza del Destino. I just sang everything, just to learn and figure out my voice and say, oh, I love when he sings it like that. I'm going to try and sing it like that. And I would record myself. And I would spend probably sometimes up to 2 and 3 hours just singing A te o cara, and just singing all these different variety of things. I'm speaking too much technical stuff a little bit, but I would sing a wide variety of things just to sort of feel it in my voice and in a safe environment late at night. No one was around in this big room. And I remember that very well. I'm actually anxious to get over there later and just look around and, you know, see some of those rooms again. And but I really just did everything I could to just figure out what spoke the best to me as an artist.
Well, I'm glad you're coming to campus today and working with students in a master class, and share your experiences and your insights, help them figure out what they need to do to improve. Let me ask you, your family, were they musical? You said you were a sponge. Did that happen at college, or did it happen before college?
You know, I grew up in New Jersey, Italian-American family, and my father's brother, my Uncle Vito, he passed away some years ago, Vito Valenti, great name, huh? He was a very good baritone, and he actually sang at my parents' wedding.
Okay.
He was not fully trained, but he had a real affinity for music and classical singing, and he also played the organ. And he passed away when I was in high school, actually, and I wish he was alive today. I'm sure I'd be very close with him and share all this, but music is in there. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, and all 4 of us are musically inclined. My brothers play the guitar, and my sister, my younger sister, she's the baby. She is a singer-songwriter, sort of like Adele. She plays the piano and sings and writes lyrics, and so we're all musically inclined in some way. So it is in the genes, partly, but I think I would have found this path eventually. I was lucky to have teachers and people that recognized it and encouraged me, because, opera, growing up, I grew up in New Jersey, red-blooded America. I played basketball, I ran track, I actually played football for a year, and I did some singing too. I was in the choirs and things and played the piano, but I didn't really know that much about opera. It wasn't until late high school and then my years at WVU that I really started to fall in love with this particular art form, because of, like I just said, the visceral quality and its voice and its unamplified natural acoustic, and something about it just really, really struck me.
So those hours in the listening lab certainly helped train your ear to what had to be the outcome. I mean, the output of as you make sound and and produce it. So
and also language. I mean, hearing how these native singers how they would pronounce certain sounds, and I think to be a singer, especially, you have to have an ear for languages and accents. And I would really I would listen to native French speakers, and I'd hear, oh, I like how he sings that R that way and this way, and then hear the vowels, and I would sort of, imitate, in a sense, how the sound they're making and try to put it in my voice. But I'd hear the way they'd sing a certain, nasal vowel and think, oh, I like that, how that sounds there, and I just listening and absorbing.
So last week, we took a number of people, about 36 people from Morgantown up to the Met to see James in Madama Butterfly.
Right.
And I remember somebody said that, who was in the group and went to school with you. And she said, well, James was a pretty studious guy. Worked hard, studied hard. And so my question becomes, what advice do you have for the young singer, maybe a high schooler or maybe a college student? They decide they want to be an opera singer. What's the best advice you can give them?
Well, I mean, yes, I would agree that I was very studious, and I, in a sense, a little bit of an opera nerd, if you will. I just, like I said, I just loved the art form. It became my still is my passion, and so to me, I was excited to do it. I remember Gus Paulunga, my teacher, would tell me, if you find something that you love, you never have to go to work.
Right.
And I was lucky at an pretty early age, to find that I loved this art form, and I just completely, engrossed myself in it. And I would say, advice I give to young singers a lot, if they really do want to sing, number one, I say to be an artist in any capacity is very difficult. It's a difficult art form to follow, to work in the arts. I would say you have to know that this is the only thing, especially when you're starting, you have to know this is the only thing that you really want to do that'll make you happy, because you have to be that devoted to it. Otherwise, if you kind of dip one foot in and say, I'm going to try this, but I think I want to do this instead, but because it's safer, but I'm going to try this, it's not going to happen. There has to be a period of time where you just go all in and say, I'm going to try this for 5 years, I'm going to pound the pavement, I'm going to do the waiting jobs, waiting tables, and just do every audition I can and try and study. You have to go through that time, and a lot of people it's difficult to say that, it's difficult to do that. And I would say you have to have, I always say the 4 Ds. A very, very good friend of mine, a Welsh baritone I sang with many years ago, he gave me this advice. You have to have the desire, to do this. You have to have the discipline to be diligent and study, the determination to say, I'm going to try this, and you have to have the dedication to the art form itself, and to say, this is what I want to do with my life, and this is what I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to commit myself to this. Because if you don't do that, then you're just kind of, trying it halfway. it's with anything. You know, any athlete will tell you the same thing. You have to go all in and just say, this is what I'm going to do. And you know, if you fail, you fail. But at least you went all in and you tried. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And I was lucky early on that I had some experience and I had some great opportunities come my way. But I had done all the hard work up until then, so that when the opportunities came, I was able to capitalize on it. And if you don't do the preparation and really dedicate yourself to it, then when the time comes, you know, things you might not be able to capitalize.
So, by the way, there's nothing wrong with being an opera nerd.
No, of course not. You probably were too, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I still am. You know, I go home sometimes and get on YouTube, and God, I wish I had YouTube when I was at WVU. Oh my God, all these things for free, just on the internet, all these videos. It's like, you know, and I'll just listen to these great singers. I have a number of people that just inspire me. You know, even now that I'm a professional, and I still listen to these great singers from you know, from back in the 50s, the golden age.
Right.
And I get inspired myself. You know.
Do you have a favorite?
I have a few. I mean, off the top, the first one that comes to my mind is Franco Corelli. Was a great tenor back in the 50s and 60s, and he was just exciting and great technique and massive voice, and just you know. So he's one that I just listen to and think, wow, that's just an incredible sound, you know. And of course, Luciano Pavarotti, you can't go wrong with that. Classically beautiful, but there are so many. There's so many. So.
And what about your favorite roles that you've performed, and what you're looking to perform in the future as well?
Well, I've done a lot of Rodolfo in La Boheme, which is one I've made my debut with, as you mentioned, and that's sort of a fun character. He's romantic and spontaneous and sort of flies by the seat of his pants, but that's a fun character to play, and it's all about young love, and that's a fun character to play. I do Pinkerton a lot, as you mentioned, in Madame Butterfly, where I get to wear a very nice navy uniform. But that character in Madame Butterfly is difficult because he's kind of a cad. He's kind of the bad guy. So that one's a tricky one. It's very difficult to sing, and normally you get booed because of the way the story goes. The audience typically is not very sympathetic. One of my favorite roles is Werther by Massenet. It's a French opera, and he's a poet. And he's the whole opera, though, he's very melancholy, and he's contemplating suicide the whole opera. But he sings such tormented, passionate music. It's really a lot of fun. And now I'm going to be doing in the next coming year my first Don José in Carmen and my first Cavaradossi in Tosca. So I'm moving towards some of that stuff now.
So if you had to choose a favorite composer, I used to get asked this question all the time. And
that's tough.
It's very
I mean,
favorite opera, favorite composer?
That's tough. I mean, I guess at the moment, this just popped into my head. I just sang a few months ago for the first time Don Carlo by Verdi, which is, I don't know if you know the piece very well, but just an astounding opera. Yep. And I'd have to say, for the moment right now, that probably is one of my favorite pieces.
You did both versions.
I did it in French and Italian, yeah. And it's just, every role is just unbelievable, and it's, I mean, it's very heavy. It's about Spanish Inquisition. It's a very heavy story, but it's just an amazing piece to be a part of. And so I'd have to say at the moment, Verdi and Don Carlo is probably my favorite piece.
Great, super. So the most satisfying thing about the career so far, and maybe the most difficult. So, I mean, sacrificing. I mean, when you're in a career and you're dedicated, as you say, disciplined,
right,
and you're making sacrifices, you're sacrificing sometimes a normal life.
Well, that was what I was going to say. That's one of the most difficult things. Is that I'm on the road about 2/3 of the year, sometimes more. I have a beautiful condo in Florida. I'm never there to enjoy it, which is a good problem because I'm working and I'm busy. But that's difficult. It's difficult for personal life too, for relationships, and because I'm not stable. I'm sort of always, as the Italians say, sempre in giro, always turning, always moving around. And it's exciting, you know, as a young person, and I'm not married, I don't have any kids of my own yet, so I'm enjoying that. I'm seeing the world, and I'm traveling, I'm meeting all kinds of people. It's very fulfilling, very enriching in that way. So that's definitely a plus, and then the downside is just that you don't have that sort of 9 to 5 normal routine, and I'm always living out of a suitcase, and I wake up sometimes, actually this morning, and you wake up and you have that moment, okay, where am I? What city am I in? Which country am I in? I'm not kidding. There are moments where you're like, where am I right now? Okay, and you have to take a second. Okay, I'm in West Virginia. I'm not in Sydney, Australia or something. You have moments where you just kind of have to remember where you are. You don't wake up in the same place all the time. So that's difficult. That's something that they don't teach you in school also.
Have you started to dream in Italian or German yet?
I haven't had that. No, have you? Have you done that?
Yeah.
I haven't had that. I speak Italian and French, relatively well, but not fluently enough that I would dream in the language. But that's what they say is the mark of mastering a language is when you dream in it.
Well, I lived over there for 3 years. So
okay.
That was my
okay.
downfall.
All right.
So
In Germany?
Yeah, in Austria.
Oh, in Austria. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
Some of your most favorite collaborators.
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, well, let's see. Off the top of my head,
Let's start with conductors.
Conductors. Okay. Antonio Pappano at the Royal Opera.
I knew him as Tony
Tony. Well,
when he was still just a pianist.
okay, well, Tony, yeah. I would say Tony Pappano. I call him Tony too, but I was being polite. I was being formal.
Who's from Connecticut?
Yeah, he's from Connecticut, yeah. Now he lives in London. But he's a great
Super
guy.
talent,
Understands
super
singers so well. Just Marco Armiliato, who I just sang with at the Royal and at the Met. He's just like, he just lets you do what you want to do. He's with you every step. There's no ego. There's no like, I'm the conductor, you must follow me. He's like, whatever you want to do, take time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. He's just so easy. And
Great singer's conductor.
yeah, he is. And also, I really enjoy also Stephen Mercurio, who I'm making my first CD actually coming up with Stephen Mercurio. And he's done he used to tour with Bocelli and all kinds of things, and also does a lot of opera. And he's a good friend, and so I really, those guys in particular I really enjoy. There are others too. I mean, I don't want to leave people out, but those three come to my mind. And then leading ladies, I've really been lucky. I've sung with some really first-rate, beautiful leading ladies, and just recently with Christine Opolace, beautiful Latvian soprano I just sang with at the Met. I've worked with Anna Netrebko, who is also a friend, Angela Georgiou. I've sung with some great ones, and then I've also worked with legends like Leo Nucci, who was just so encouraging and giving me advice about career and voice, and many. Thomas Hampson also. I made my Met debut with Thomas Hampson and Angela Georgiou. And he was great. He was showing me all the little
Traviata.
Traviata, yeah, many years ago. He would show me the spots on. This is a sweet spot here on stage. So make sure when you do your aria, you want to stand here. Those
nice
kind of
to
things.
talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. So, stage directors.
Well, when I made my debut, I worked with Franco Zeffirelli. I remember, he's a legend, and I was 25 years old in Italy, working with this legend, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Who is this guy? I have no business being here with this legend, but remarkable man. Let's see, who else off the top of my head? I'm trying to think of people most recently. I never worked hands-on with David McVicker, but I did a couple of his productions, and I just think he's just I don't know him personally, but his work is just a pleasure to be a part of. And this Anthony Minghella production of Butterfly that I just did at the Met, I worked with all his assistants because he's passed.
Right.
But to be a part of that, in those kind of productions where they just complement the story so well, and you just feel like you're excited to be a part of this. I've done productions where it's some new age avant-garde type thing, and your costume is all this weird stuff, and you're almost embarrassed to go out on stage because you're like, I'm not excited about this. But you have to, because that's the job. But these productions where you feel like, wow, this is such an amazing piece to be a part of this, and I love everything, and everything is amazing, and you're excited about going out. And that's what Zeffirelli and these legends, it's in my mind, it looks like how it's supposed to look.
I've always felt like the greatest directors were the ones who didn't update things, didn't make drastic changes. They just found new ways to be so creative with the original.
Like Minghella, like this production. I mean, it was definitely very modern looking, but it just worked so beautiful. All these mirrors and this big rake and all these beautiful colors and lights, and it definitely updated version, but did not distract from the story. Right. It complemented it in a new way, which to be able to think like that is just honestly beyond me. It's inspiring.
So
Humbling.
one of the most strange things that happened to you on stage, a little anecdote, little story for us about something weird that happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little personal, but many years ago I was singing a production, and I won't say names or where, but we were doing a certain opera, and I was singing with this very beautiful soprano that I was having a little bit of a romance with off stage as well. And she finished her aria, and I was meant to come in, with applause, and I was meant to come in right away. And she finished, and I just was mesmerized, and I just was standing there staring at her like, wow, like in my mind thinking, that was so good, you're so beautiful. And I just forgot to sing. And she had to kind of look at me and go, James, canta tu. Like, you sing now, you gotta sing. Okay. And I had to like come out of it for a second. I was like an audience member. I just was like, so those things happen sometimes. It's live theater. It's live theater. Many other things too. There are moments, you'd be shocked. There are moments where people forget lines, or people make up words, or even operas you've done a lot. Right. You have moments where you just sort of go up, or you forget something and just sing, an alternate. Mm-hmm. I had a couple years ago, I did a production of my first time doing Madame Butterfly, and I was dating this very lovely Italian girl who was not a singer at all. And I was singing this final duet in the opera, which is Viene la sera, here comes the evening, is the text. And the opera finished, and she said to me afterwards, because she doesn't know the actual text, she just remembered the meaning, and she goes, I love this duetto, this arriva la notte, this the night arrives. So she remembered the meaning of it, but she didn't know the actual text. And so every time I get to that point in the show now, I want to say arriva la notte. I want to like change the words, because she was Italian, so she understood the meaning of it rather than the actual literal words, which was kind of fun. But
well, we're so happy that you're back here in Morgantown visiting with us.
Pleasure.
And James we bestowed upon James in New York City 2 weekends ago the College of Creative Arts 2014 Outstanding Alumnus Award, and we're just so happy for your career and the things that you're doing, and we're so happy that you remember us here in Morgantown.
Sure, of course.
And that you're back and going to share some
things. I
have
have many fond memories here, and so I'm anxious to be back and to see how much the city has sort of evolved. I mean, just driving around last night to see all the new construction, and it's a pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me.
Today, yeah. And you were here when David Hardesty was president.
Yes,
and I think David had you singing a lot on campus, didn't he?
He did. I sang at Woodburn a couple times. I sang all over the place, and so I still maintain a relationship with him and his wife. Right. So I sang everywhere. I mean, I sang. We did a lot of my Home Among the Hills and Country Roads, John in Denver, and these kind of things too with the choir and what. But yeah, I sang here a lot. I have a lot of great memories here.
I think you came back and sang at his retirement.
I did. Some years ago, I sang at his retirement party. I sang a couple Italian songs and just sort of I think I was a surprise guest. I think that, if I recall, he didn't know I was going to be there. They flew me in, and I just kind of came in and sang for him.
Well, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Well, thank you so much for joining
me
today and coming back to Morgantown. We hope you'll join us again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, you just want to. That's what singing is about. Singing and working on technique and all that is about communicating. It's about telling a story or telling people something. It's not just, oh, listen to me sing these pretty notes, and which you sound great. You have all that. I mean, you sing very easily. But I'm just trying to give you think about another layer of that. And this is very presentational. You come out and and I'm going to sing now. In the opera, you'd have a costume. It would be in the middle of a scene, so it's a bit different. We're trying to recreate some of that. But I just want to feel a little more energy from you. Okay. So start from the beginning again, and when you get to those F sharps, because you sing a few of them, try and think a little more ooh, as opposed to kaur. Okay. Think a little bit lower in the voice. So try it again from the beginning.